There is a ton of build diversity in Dune Awakening. With 4 main classes to choose from and 200 skill points, you can go a lot of different directions depending on the way you want to build your character. But there's a lot of complexity because you're limited to only 3 abilities and 3 techniques with a host of passives to weave into all the many things you can do in the game. In this video today, I want to help crack open making a build for you so you can approach exploring this game in any way that best suits your playstyle. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge of my videos. So with that being said, let me say this. If you just bought the game and are wondering what to do, don't worry about it. You can respec at any time with a 48-hour cooldown. So I encourage you to just buy every single ability, technique, and passive in the game and fully explore everything, seeing how you like it. I have over 100 hours and I just started dabbling with actually making a build work for me to leverage the abilities I use the most. You won't be struggling with some suboptimal build. It really comes down more to your items than anything else. Outside of that, the big takeaway of the video is that you shouldn't view this game in a rigid class system. We'll be flexing in and out of other classes to grab single passives, techniques, or abilities that best suit the playstyle of the 2 hypothetical builds I'll be building out in this video. So build out according to the items and abilities you want to focus on, not specifically the classes you want to play. Also, ensure you have additional abilities that suit the situations you're going to find yourself in throughout the game. For instance, I maybe use 5 abilities for combat, but then I have 2 absolutely necessary traversal abilities that I can't imagine playing the game without. That's 7 abilities, but we can only have 3 active at once, so I swap them to fit the situation at hand. Lastly, PvP is an unbalanced mess of crashing ornithopters, so don't worry about the balance until Funcom has rolled out their first round of patches geared towards it, which they've said is coming. But that's the too long didn't watch this entire video, so that's all you wanted to know. Please feel free to shut the video down. I want to be respectful of your time. If you are heading out and you found the information in this video helpful, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe, as each one of those helps me out in a huge way. Lastly, you can find a link below to my Dune videos as well as my Twitch where I play this game and plenty of others. Let's get started on making the best build for all characters in Dune Awakening. So before we get into the video, let me just kind of say as a disclaimer up front, I'm not going to be talking about, I don't know, the best abilities to use. You should use these abilities. You have to use these abilities. There's only 2 I'm going to say are absolutely necessary. The rest of this video is going to be geared more towards arming you with the information you need to make the build that you want based off of the abilities you enjoy playing. I don't give a fuck if any of these abilities are super not viable, quote unquote, or really not good or whatever it is. If I enjoy playing with them, then they're amazing. This is all different, of course, for PvP in the deep desert, because those things are always going to be a different and always evolving, changing meta. But as far as the PvE is concerned, play with whatever you enjoy, play with whatever you're having the most fun with, because it's really not going to matter. Your time to kill is going to be not that much, or not drastically different, unless you're like, oh, well, I'm not really enjoying sniper. Well, then just don't use the sniper. Use a different weapon that you can actually get a lot of value out of, or something else of that sort. And that's, I guess, worth noting too. A lot of weapons in the game. So for example here, let's just look at this one, right? This is the scattergun. Well, there could be, and I'm the hypothetical, there are unique research mechanics where, unique research schematics where you will find maybe a scattergun that behaves more like an assault rifle, or I found an assault rifle that performs more like a DMR, a dedicated marksman rifle, where it's single round, semi-automatic, higher round damage. So there's a lot of things that kind of exist within the game that break the rules of the game so that you can jump across different boundaries by using the benefits of things that already exist. Like I said here, using Mentat has the rifle bonus. I could use rifle damage bonus, and I'm not going to be using snipers, but you know what? That Karpov kind of acts like a sniper for me, gives me that long range DMR style of combat without being a set sniper. So those are examples of ways that you can approach this in different ways. And the last thing too in this section I want to bring up, it's just a very quick breakdown. I think everyone knows this, but just for the sake of continuity, you've got 3 different things you can invest in your skill tree. You have abilities, which are these diamonds here. You have these circles, which are passives. And then you have these stop signs right here, which are your techniques. You can only have 3 techniques active at a time and only 3 abilities active at a time. And then you have your capstone techniques or abilities or passives. So just remember that shape or that iconography that we talked about a second ago applies to the capstone abilities up here at the top. So for Mentat, Assassination, Tactician, both have abilities as their capstones versus Mental Calculus, which is a passive. Or for Trooper here, they're all abilities. Planetologist, it's a technique and 2 abilities, so on and so forth. So just know those things, just a kind of a primer and a bit of a disclaimer up front before diving in. So let's talk about our first hypothetical build in more of a melee character. So before we get into the actual building of this melee class I just talked about, let's talk about something that's going to be true for both melee and for ranged. And it's the skills, the abilities, the passives, the abilities, the techniques that I'm going to want regardless of what character I'm making. And the first one here is Bindu Sprint. Being able to Bindu Sprint off of a ledge and then use your jetpack, that's not the word for it, your suspenders, your suspension belt, your belt that allows you to float around is amazing. It's one of the coolest things. You feel like Spider-Man. Maybe feel more like Superman. What makes you feel like Spider-Man is the other ability I cannot recommend enough. It is the Shiga Wire Claw. It is basically your grappling hook. It's so huge. It's so nice. It's so great. You're going to use it for the entirety, especially if you're trying to traverse up the Z-axis. It's awesome. These 2 skills I'll never not have, and I wish the game had a capability to swap between skill sets on the fly, maybe with a small cooldown so you can't just like cheese it in PvP or something of the sort, because these 2 just are so crucial. I can't imagine playing without them. So definitely recommend. It's like the only 2 abilities, like I said earlier, that I say you have to get. Now, outside of that, is everything in the Planetologist tree is going to come down to you and how you like to interact with the game, but there are compulsory regardless of whether or not you want to play ranged or melee. Do you want to be the character that spends a lot of time mining? Maybe you're playing with friends and you're going to want to be the one that does a lot of damage or does a lot of the mining. Well, you want to tap into this depending on what that is, because you can go through stuff like this. Hey, this is going to help out with your cutter ray. This is going to help out with the cutter ray that is mounted on top of your vehicle. This is going to help out with the durability loss on your vehicle. This is going to help out with the fuel on your vehicle. So this is going to help out with climbing things. This is going to help with your hydration. So you can see the Planetologist is really a come-all class where you need to leverage certain things from it depending upon the stuff you like to do within the game. It makes the things that you hate maybe easier. It makes the things you love easier. So it depends upon you. For example, I play with my friend Chris. Chris always really likes to focus more on the combat or the survival aspects of survival games. I love the building and harvesting aspect of survival games. So with also combat, right? I like the combat, but I can get lost building a base. So that means, Planetologist has got a lot of things that are really up my alley. So I want to focus on them first. So just keep this in mind. It's not the requirement of saying you've got to choose these, but there's a lot of really good stuff in here, even if you're really not trying to focus on one or the other 100%. Like maybe I really don't like doing the harvesting. Well, this, even though it's 3 skill points, it allows me to get more yield. Same thing here, right? High engagement, low engagement yield bonuses. So my cutter ray actually works a lot better. So I can get more resources, so I can spend less time doing it. So just kind of consider these things too, right? As you look at all this stuff, this also helps out when it comes to using your compactor. So play with this how you will. Will you jump more into some of the vehicle stuff? Will you not? But just keep this in mind when you are building out. Maybe you want to fill this tree if you're using this builder, which will be linked in the description below. You want to fill this tree out first, so you know what points you can't play with, basically, right? Like if let's say I just put this into this tree. Well, now I know I have 11 points I can't play around with. That's less. That's 11 less my 200. So just know those things, kind of plan that out, pre-plan that in your build so you have an idea of what you want. I mean, honestly, I've put 1 point to all this and I haven't been regretting it. But stuff like this is a really good example of this increases the max power of your shield. That means that your shield has more health. So that means even if you wanted to purely do combat, this is the thing that helps your shield because it allows you to mitigate more damage with your shield because you've got more shield juice. So you can still pull benefits to things if you're not trying to do just the Planetologist stuff. So finally jumping into this melee build, we have 4 classes really, right? The planetologist is a 5th class, but as far as taking a look at the skills, abilities, and the passives that are delivered to us, Bene Gesserit and Swordmaster favor melee. In fact, almost entirely. Whereas Trooper and Mentat favor ranged, also almost entirely. But both of them have overlap. So you would think of these 4 classes as overlapping Venn diagrams with things that you would be able to benefit from no matter where you are in this kind of setup. So for this melee build, we then have to bifurcate between, do we want to play a Bene Gesserit heavily or a Swordmaster heavily as far as abilities and mechanics we want to pull from. Bene Gesserit's going to allow me to do a lot more like situational critical damage, where I can benefit from characters being in any kind of state that's not just up close and personal, versus Swordmaster allows me to do the opposite. I can do more damage to things as I maybe not more damage, but I do damage to things as I just get up into the cookie jar and just face them fisticuffs just straight on. So depends on how you want to play. For this example here, we'll go more Bene Gesserit because I really have enjoyed my Bene Gesserit gameplay playthrough, and we'll have some fun here. So what I want to look at first, though, is some of the passives I want to focus on. If I'm going to go with Bene Gesserit, I want to focus more on blade damage. So let's look at some blade passives. We get this one, which gives us a blade damage bonus to all blades, to long and short blades, versus this just gives us short blade damage. So both of these are going to be pretty crucial for me. We've already talked about Bindu Sprint. I love this one, but I'm going to put more points into this. And I think even if you're not doing like a melee character, max this out maybe, huh? And I'm going to max this out. I'm going to max this out. So that 22 points are already invested in this section. That's fine. And I want to kind of look at from here, what kind of abilities do I really want to pull into this build? Bindu Sprint, yes, but I'm not looking at this as a primary combat ability. I'm just looking at it as a traversal. So it's not in my mind as something I really want to pull from, because I'm focusing on these abilities first, because then I'm going to try to get techniques that amplify those. And maybe we don't just stay here. So one I really like here is Weirding Step. I basically get a large traversal where I can move to a location and do a lot of damage to something. And in the time that I do that, they are in a state where they will be getting bonus damage from Manipulate Instability. So I'm going to put this right here because that's one I really want. And I know too that this is a voice capability. So okay, so this is already going to knock them into a state where they are going to get bonus damage from this. I know I want that technique, but this is a voice thing. So now the voice only works on targets who have been registered. So this allows me to register targets quicker. This, I will say, is not really quite the same as that. This is more, hey, this will work on these techniques, less this one. This one just seems to be a pretty instantaneous thing where you don't necessarily need to register them as fast. So maybe we skip this one because this is more relegated to these. So we have one technique that we're going to focus on. We'll pull that in. So now we have a good idea. We've got some good blade work done here. We've got some good damage from Weirding Step. We've got a technique that amplifies the damage from Weirding Step. A lot of great stuff. But we also need to deal with health and stamina in this game in equal measure. And this is going to be true both of the melee and our ranged. But let's take a look at this one. This is going to help give us health regen. That's nice, but I'm going to use this just as a means to connect. So what's this one going to do? Okay, healing regen limit and healing regen rate. You know, these two will stack together. That's going to be quite nice, right? So this is at top end 130, and this top end is 120. So I don't know if it says multiplicative, so I don't really know how this percentage falls out, but this is going to have me have a lot of healing regen. Healing regen doesn't kick in though unless you're out of combat, from what I understand. So maybe I want to go with this though. This is going to passively increase my health by 55 at max level. That's huge. But what does this one do? Okay, healing effectiveness from items and then from health regen per tick. So all these things kind of play together, right? So on a bottom level, if I just took this, that's okay. But then if I took this, and then if I took this, I get a lot of healing effectiveness from healing regen, and healing regen has a huge amount between these two. That's a heavy point investment. So this is kind of a time where you got to look at this and go, do I want to take 9 points of healing regen and see what I can get from it? Or do I want to focus on other things? It's going to be up to you. But that's an example of like, sometimes you don't need to take all the points into stuff. So here's one though, that is kind of useful no matter what: sun tolerance. So now it's harder for me to suffer from sunstroke because I have 3 points into this, because it's a 70% versus the 100% we just standard by have by default. Well, that's pretty nice. So let's go with that. And let's jump across here to self-healing. I like this because now all of my healing things, especially the bandages, they give me more. It's going to be 30% more effective. That's substantial. So that's great. But I still want this juicy thing that increases my max health. I don't really want to put a point into this. We can just drop a point and jump across, but I really like this one. This reduces the amount of poise damage I'm going to take so that my character is not knocked out of balance, so that I can continue to do melee. Let's put 3 points into that and 3 points into this. And let's drag this down. So now I've got a technique that's going to really amplify not even a specific ability, but just the play style I've got in mind. So that's really good. That's really good. That's really fun. That's dandy. And then we've got these two over here. Metabolized poison is great because poisons are actually pretty effective in this game, but it is going to cost me a technique. So I think this one is situational, but I like it. And it's only 1 point. So what's nice here is if I'm going to go into a location where I'm dealing with lots of snipers, which are going to do poison damage to me, lots of traps, which do poison damage to me, all sorts of things that are going to deal with poison damage, I can use this to try to remove the poison or not deal with it. Furthermore, this one I like quite a bit as well, because this gives me a tolerance against poison. I don't know if it's worth all 3 points because it goes 20, 30, 45. It might just be worth 2 points in this just to get to 30. It does jump up 15 points. It goes 10, 10, 15. So, but you have to look that this goes 1 point, then 3 points, then 4 points. So in total, this costs 8 points to jump into. So if we're at 69, now we're at 77. So just notice that not all of these are done as equal point investments, right? Some of these are, this is 2, 3, 4. This is 1, 3, 4. So just know that too, that you're not just simply putting singular points into things. It is going to pull more and more out of it. Right now, we've got 72 points invested out of our 200, and we haven't even touched Swordmaster. So let's take a look at Swordmaster for a second, because we just talked about a bunch of the health benefits of Bene Gesserit. But what about Swordmaster? Well, Swordmaster has tons of stamina. And if you've played the game at all, you know that stamina is king when it comes to doing any kind of melee. So what I want to do here is try to jump into some of this. Stamina recovery rate is huge because that's going to recover no matter what. We get base stamina increase. We get heal kit instant restorations. We get hydrated stamina bonuses. We get dehydrated stamina limit, which isn't as huge. Max stamina, which is massive. So there's a lot of really good stuff in here. So let's just start in this tree with the way. And this is a really good kind of semi-traversal. It's a traversal that you can use in the middle of combat, which is great. And what I'm going to do here is this little ability, what it does here says you propel yourself forward into battle with a terrific knee charge into the enemy. Deals damage and severely staggers your opponent, but costs stamina. Well, what does this do? It does bonus to things that are staggered. This gives us a means of traversing in combat. If you've ever dealt with a heavy gunner or a flamer that you just can't kill, backpedal, it's going to start shooting at you, knee charge it in the fucking face, and then its shields are going to be down, it'll be staggered, and you're going to do a ton of damage. So let's put this in together. These two already work very well together because they're both kind of traversal skills that we can use because we're going to jump around in combat. So it's really great. So heal kit instant restoration bonus. What this means is whenever you use a heal kit, you'll notice that it heals you, but that bar that it heals in is a lighter color because it's going to jump to that point. This is showing us that the amount that it instantly restores is a higher amount. So by 20%, that's quite substantial. Versus this one here is a hydrated stamina bonus. You should be hydrated all the time. So we're going to put 3 points into this because we want that 25% bonus. Because being hydrated is quite easy to leverage. But we have some other stuff here. Inspiration. You inspire yourself and your companions to greater heights, increasing the damage of your melee attacks. This is great if you're playing with friends. It's also great if you're playing alone. But I'm trying to think of the way that I'm building this character out. which is a lot of staggering, a lot of damage that we're going to be dealing. So I'm maybe not going to focus on this. We still want to try to get to this one. I actually don't like this. This is dehydrated stamina limit. As soon as you see your character's dehydrated, you always try to jump to some sort of water source as fast as possible. This can mitigate it, but it's definitely not worth the very substantial point cost that we talked about, right? This is going to be 6 points to get all the way down there. No thanks. Now we have another technique here, which helps out with stamina recovery rate. This can be quite good. What I would say is this is going to be a your mileage may vary type of ability. Use this if you find that in melee you really are struggling to have stamina online. Then pop this in. But I really like this bad boy. This is just going to outright give me more stamina to take advantage of. Love that all the way around. And we have another ability here, Clipping Strike. You move in, striking at a low angle for a while. Your enemies are slowed and their dashes require more stamina. While not the most honorable attacks, the Swordmaster understands there is a difference between a duel and a war. This is, I would argue, more of a PvP capability. You're not going to deal with tons of things trying to run away from you in this game, but they are in some form of this. So manipulate instability will give a damage bonus to this because I believe they are then unstable. So notice that I'm not going to be choosing it in this situation here. But we also get this ability here with Prescient Strike. When your blood is saturated with melange, you see multiple ways in which to damage your enemies. After using any Swordmaster ability, your next strike will strike twice, reflecting 2 possible versions of the future converging in a single space-time. I don't like a ton of the melange stuff because I have that like problem in my brain as an RPG player where I'm like, I should use this for the dire moment that I need it, and I just never do. But what I like about this is it's a passive. So I can just go ahead and have this active and not have to worry about turning it on. By the time you get these unlocked, you'll have a lot more game presence and game knowledge. So don't worry about the capstone abilities as much. I'm not going to really focus on them in this video because my note on that is you'll have a better idea of what you want capstone wise that this video is not going to give you. I would just say like, oh, maybe for this build, I would choose that. Once you get to the point you unlock these, you're going to go, no, I want this specific thing to be better because this is how I play. So keep that in mind. Now we still have a technique slot open and we still have an ability slot open. We can go with something like deflection, which is going to help us deflect darts from range combat. We can go with something like foil here, which is really good. When you're next attacked in melee, you parry and counterattack with a precise strike that damages their arm and numbs them for a short period of time. Their damage output is reduced, which reduces their damage, which is great. Or this one that does bleed on the target, which is awesome. You've got this one too, that when you kill something, it gives you more health. More health. You do more damage for a little bit of time. You've got an AoE ability here. You've got a technique over here as well that sprint attacks provide bonus damage, so you can just kind of lunge into something. So at this point, you see, we've built a pretty good character around 2 techniques and some instabilities. But do we stick with this? We've already spent roughly now 97 points into this melee build, and this is where it kind of can differentiate. You can start to jump into these locations and start to have a little fun here. Maybe we go with something like a Sentinel, and now the Sentinel just drops down on the ground, and it gives me the ability to have a distraction point so I can run around and kill things. The Sentinel gets even better over time, so you can have that capability. Let's drop 1 point and put it here just to show off. But we also, too, can go with this stuff. Now that we're in Mentat, well, Garment Keeper is great for everybody. It reduces durability loss, so we're going to focus on it. And this one here reduces max durability loss when I repair things. Those are invaluable. You spend less time repairing, less time worrying about a suspensor belt breaking, finally said it right, and not having to worry about all those little things. So those 2 passives are amazing. Now, we can also look at some other things, like maybe you're trying to use more of rifles, you're trying to use more pistols, you're trying to use more headshots, all that stuff, it all exists within Mentat. But we get stuff like this to help us out with some distracting stuff, which is not even necessarily a range capability. So also, Trooper affords us some great stuff too. One thing I like from Trooper that is really nice is Battle Hardened. This reduces the ability cooldown by 30% of everything. So this is a really nice technique that doesn't apply to anything that we've taken so far, right? Because it is one of those techniques that is great no matter what. So here's an example too of jumping off of the Bene Gesserit and Swordmaster to get really good things that don't really play hand in hand for what we're doing. And furthermore, we're going to jump into these 2 things because this is going to reduce durability loss for our weapons and tools. I said suspensor belt. This is for apparel. This is for tools. So we want to go 1 point here into range damage, 1 point here just because this would take 2 points, right? If I went like this into this into this, that's 2 points. Unless you want to use one of these, I would just skip it. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And at that point, we can kind of really flex around into other things. What I've really seen is like, hey, you know what? I actually am going to go with Compel. Actually, if you start with Bene Gesserit, you don't have a choice. You start with Compel. And now I'm going to move things towards me. Well, maybe now I want to choose this so that I have a better cooldown on my voice abilities, and which stacks again with this ability. And I go with Rapid Register so I can compel things quicker. So from this point, now hopefully you get an idea of how to push through a melee build. You're trying to find things that overlap and trying to leverage them, right? Stunner here, this stuns the target. Okay, so Stunner is an example of something that's going to benefit from this. This is a stun, stagger, or knockback effect. So you can, I think also the one of these does a knockback effect with it. I believe it's the one of them does, or just a simple the grenade, if they don't have a shield up, will knock them back. So jump into some of these other abilities and see, is the collapse grenade? One of them does. And temporarily stunned, leaving them open to area of effect attacks. So try to jump around as a melee character and find overlapping things that really work for you. Even if you want to go pure Swordmaster and try to be just up close and personal, you're still really going to want to get stuff like these two abilities. You're still going to want to grab stuff like these two abilities. And when we talk about range in a bit, we're going to talk about what we're going to pull from melee no matter what. So hopefully this gives you a better idea on how to build out a melee character. And the nice thing here is, does it show where the totals? Okay, we've spent 145 points on stuff that I think is pretty compulsory for the build that we've built out. We still have 55 points. So I can go ahead and kind of go ass crazy over here, which is a term I don't think people really use enough on things that maybe I'm just clicking things and kind of bringing them up to max over here, right? There we go. I mean, we've just invested 56 more points, which is almost more than any other trio stuff in Bene Gesserit, and had plenty of points to flex around. So feel free to jump around with melee. Find things that play and make sense for how you're building this build out, but also find things in other trees that also give you little tiny benefits in the right direction. Okay, so we talked about melee, and we looked at some base things that you could do for that. But what about ranged? And I think ranged exists in a much different sphere than melee, because melee, it doesn't matter if you're using a rapier, a sword, a dirk, or a blade. Melee performs the same across all four. You can make the argument, of course, that different attack animations have different timings and whatnot. That's definitely true. But when it comes to ranged, it's a whole different play style. If you're using heavy weapons, if you're using drill shots and scatter guns, if you're using disruptors and pistols, if you're using rifles and sniper rifles, all of them play differently. And they require different things to play with them. So let's do this. I want to be a trooper that focuses primarily on using assault rifles, meaning I'm going to have to pull from Mentat. Let's play around. We already have our Bene Gesserit and our trooper capabilities. I'm going to max this one out. And you know what? I'm going to max this one out just for the sake of points. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to put this one too, because it's just so crucial, I think, for all the many abilities that we get from trooper. And if you hear construction in the background, I am so sorry. Now, we have a lot of different grenades as trooper. We have anti-grav, which you've probably seen in the game. We then have a gravity field. We also have a collapse grenade. You can use all these to the best of your ability, meaning that you can use them to either manipulate falling from large distances. You can use them to actually propel yourself through them. They're not always offensive or defensive. You can use them more as utility. So think of those things as you approach them. But you also just get a good old standard explosive grenade. And I'm not going to lie to you, it's one of my favorite grenades. So I'm just going to put 3 points into it. I'm going to drop it down here. And let's take a look at some other things. With the trooper, the suspensor is a very big portion of it. And you get two big techniques. You get this one, which allows you to do a mid-air suspensor dash, and you get this one, which allows you to do weapon damage while you are suspended. So I want to focus on some of this. I think it's kind of fun. I think it's kind of goofy at the same time. Let's play around. I was going to put 1 point here in anti-grav. I'm going to grab suspensor dash. I'm going to put 3 points into this. I'm not looking so much for the suspensor dash. I'm looking more for this. And what does this do here? Less drain when we're using a Suspenser. So I'm going to max that. And if even if you're not playing a trooper, it's really not a bad one to max out. That's another one that probably should be everyone takes it. You'll break your Suspenser so fast. Well, not break it. You will break it, but this is also the drain on the energy. But here's something I'm going to do. If I'm going to try to focus on Suspenser damage, and I'm doing this purely for the video, I have yet to even workshop or play something like this. I'm just trying to say that we can focus on something that maybe isn't what people are talking about. I'm going to take Death from Above, because we're trying to focus on that. I'm going to go back to Planetologist, and I'm going to grab this. So now I can drop on the ground a pad that launches me into the air. I'm going to drop that down there now. And I can use the Shigawire Claw instead of this. But what's cool is you just drop this on the ground, and you can jump onto it, and it's going to launch you into the air. And then you can use your Suspenser training to just hold yourself in the air using the proper Suspenser belt to get yourself the bonus to damage here. So I'm just trying to show fun, cool, different ways. I have no idea truly what viability this is. I just think it's a cool way to approach things. It's not a very typical way. And that was the point here. Now, there are also really the Assault Seeker, which is really, really good. It just launches towards things and does explosive damage. It's really fun. But let's now jump into some range damage, because I said I want to really focus on Assault. So let's grab range damage here. We'll max this out. And I also want to grab Center of Mass, because this does increased body damage. And I want to have something to fall back on for my assault weapon. And that is, for me, going to be the Disruptor. I really like the Disruptor. I think the drill shot's amazing. I just think I love SMGs. I play a ton of Call of Duty. SMGs are for me. We're going to do that. But remember how I talked about how great these two are? We're going to grab those as well. I'm going to skip out on these, because these really focus on, well, that's Scattergun, but these two focus on using heavy weapons, and I just don't want to do that for this example. They're damn cool though, so don't think that this is like a bad idea. We'll pull this technique down. Maybe we don't stick with it. I'm kind of doing this off the fly. Let's jump over to Mentat. And there's plenty of other things that we can pull from other classes where we're about to. We've put 85 points into this. Now, we have an extra opening. What do we want to do here? Do we want to pull into some poison damage? Do we want a Sentinel to help do some additional damage with us, which I think is a really cool idea? Do we want to jump over here into a shield wall, so we basically have mobile cover at any given moment? We have a lot of different options. Even further, you could jump over here to Bene Gesserit and get the ability to compel things forward towards you. So you pull them towards you and then you gun them down with your SMG. This is, again, just to kind of get you in the mindset of trying to blend these two together. If you wanted to go with like a shotgun Mass Effect style Vanguard, you could use these abilities to either compel people towards you, have them stop, do whatever it is, to then jump up in their face and blow their head off with a shotgun. So have fun with it, right? Get really weird with it. Get wild with it. Swordmaster we're not going to dip so much into, but I'll talk about that in a sec. So you know what? Let's go with... I think the Sentinel's really cool. It's a really fun ability to use while you're just trying to gun stuff down. And we're also going to grab this Garment Keeper, or this Tailoring one. They're both so great. And we're going to increase our range damage even further. Now, this route or this route doesn't really matter. We just want to get to rifle damage. So let's just grab that because it's a passive. And boom. So we're at 39 points into Mentat, meaning we have 69 points left. So if I'm playing a range character, I've put a pretty heavy investment to a lot of different things. What else though? But Bene Gesserit has stuff that we really like. We really want this healing regen, or I'm sorry, we really want this health increase. So we can just pop into it very quickly like this. And Swordmaster has this stamina increase, which is really, really good. Remember, if we're going to wear heavy armor as like a range character, having as much stamina as possible is going to be great. So let's go ahead and go Heal Kit Restoration, because that's lovely. And that leaves us with 39 more points to play around with. So you see now that with the ranged, it's variable. I think I spent a lot of time talking about melee, because I think melee can be a bit trickier with its choice of skills, because it's very dependent on playstyle, which is not untrue of ranged here. But I think ranged is more like, what specific tools do I want to play with? And, I went with Suspensors because I thought it'd be kind of a fun, different way to approach this. But maybe, we focus more on doing... No, I forgot this is range damage. Surprise attack damage when you kill things. When you shoot them in the back? I thought this was just if they're not paying attention to you. we can focus on headshot stuff between this, and this, and our snipers just gib things, you know? We can play more with poison mechanics using all these things together. And poison is so good in this game because poison will bypass shields, and snipers do poison, but you can also get weapons that do poison from unique schematics. So I would make the argument here, you know, jump into the little things here that make sense for the items you're trying to use. Like I've said before, these typical effects you're trying to stack, like we did for our melee character. Remember, we were trying to stack a bunch of stunned or unstable, as it's called, instability bonus damage. We're trying to stack as many of those. It's the same thing for ranged. I, in this case, wanted to stack as much dispenser stuff to do as much of that with I can. You know what that means? Let's take this. Isn't there like another dispenser thing? Wish there was a search button so I could just like search a specific thing. This is a voice cooldown. This is bleed tolerance. Well, there was another dispenser one somewhere, but you know, neither here nor there. And you can see all that kind of truncated in this is really nice. But feel free to jump around to this stuff. Don't feel locked into a certain class. You can see now that I've got points in all of the classes as a primarily ranged focused class, and that's just fine. I think the game's intended to be this way, with a ton of Venn diagram overlap so that you focus on the things that make the most sense for you, your playstyle, and the way you want to go about it. But hopefully this video gives you a better idea on how to approach builds in Dune Awakening. You don't feel like it's such a rigid system where you have to max out every single thing. And remember too, like I said, it costs a lot of points to do that. This is 6 points. This is 6 points. This is 6 points? Yeah, some of them start at 2, right? So some of them are going to cost a variable amount of pointage. Just know that, so you're not just kind of jumping into that. Are they all 6? Am I just have I been stupid this whole time? Probably. But some are just a single point. Some are 2 points for that single point. All that kind of stuff. Just make sure you're kind of looking at this and getting yourself an idea of what you want and going with that, rather than just saying I want to be purely one or the other. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. If you have any suggestions or ways to approach building classes, let it be known in the comment section below, and you'll have a link to this so that you can build it out for yourself. But again, have a good one and take care.